Hello, friends. I hope you all are going well and you are enjoying this digital platform of e learning offered by our college. I, CA Pujan Kapadia, welcome you all on my today's lecture of the subject accountancy and taxation. I hope you might be quite excited to learn with a new topic for the very first time in your life. So, friends, first of all, before starting with today's lecture, I would just like you to recall that what we have covered in our last video. Friends, in our last video, we have taken utmost due care of the syllables that we are going to study in this particular semester. Yes, your syllables that we are going to cover in this entire syllabus. Moving ahead, the next part that we had done is we have taken a small quiz so that we can test your knowledge. The concept of e-learning is basically all about my inputs, your inputs, and collectively our outputs. So we are going to continue with the same tactics. What I'm going to do is we are going to start with certain theory chapters, as a result of which I will try my best that I am not giving you so much of the content so that you get bored. So what we are going to do is we are going to study certain basic concepts of income tax which are new but which are necessary for you to be known for your examination as well as for your practical knowledge of this particular subject. So again, this is going to be the good combination of knowledge sharing as well as testing your knowledge at the end. So now I would like to start with the today's topic. The name of the chapter that we are going to commence with today is Basic Concepts of Income Tax. Friends, under this chapter, we are going to deal with certain technical terms that we are going to use for lifelong when we are going to talk about income tax. So don't take this subject basically that what you are going to study for the semester and you are going to forget for rest of your life. No, this is something that we are going to study for once, but we need to remember all the terms for our lifetime because whensoever every year the finance minister is going to come and declare his budget speech, we would be the one who could be the best analyst of his particular speech. So friends, with this initial comments, I would like to start with my today's lecture. The first thing that I have written on the slide that you can easily see over here is taxes can be broadly classified into two categories. So the first short question that I can ask you is into how many classifications are there of taxes? Your answer will be there are two categories. First is direct tax and second is indirect tax. You might have heard direct tax, indirect tax, but today we are going to basically learn what is direct tax and what is indirect tax. So let's go into the technical meaning of this particular word. Taxes whose burden cannot be shifted. Please highlight this word. I have highlighted the same for you. The taxes whose burden cannot be shifted. That is, the person who pays it to the government has to bear its burden. Now, to explain you what is written over here into a general language, let's take an example of income tax. Let's take my own example. I am doing job as a professor in the college. I am being paid salary by the college. Now salary is my income. Now at the end of the year, when I need to file my income tax return, government would say, आपने जितनी income earn की है, आपको उसके ऊपर tax pay करना है. So what I am going to do is, I will calculate the total tax liability on the basis of entire income that I have earned during the year. So basically, I am earning salary. What I'm going to do is I'm calculate the total salary and I'm going to calculate the total tax liability on my salary amount. And I'm going to pay that particular tax with the government. Now, in this particular scenario, who is the person who is paying the tax? I have written over here the person who pays the tax to the government. I am the one. And who has actually borne the burden? Who is paying from his own account? I am paying it from my own pocket. Answer is yes. So the person who is bearing the burden and who is actually paying the tax to the government is the same. So I cannot shift the burden of my income tax. Such taxes which is directly attributable to the person who is actually involved in the particular transaction is known as direct tax. So in crux, what we are supposed to learn is those taxes whose burden cannot be shifted from one person to another are known as direct taxes. I gave you the example of income tax. I can explain the same term from another viewpoint. For example, you are a businessman. During the entire year, you are doing the business and you are earning profit out of it. At the end of the year, what government is going to ask for is your income tax return. Sir, how much profit have you earned? On your profit, you are supposed to calculate your tax liability and deposit the same with the government. Again, in this particular situation, you are the one who is paying the tax and you are the one who is finally bearing the burden of the tax. In short, you cannot pass the burden of tax. So such taxation, that is income tax, is known as direct tax. So income tax is nothing. It is one of the example of direct tax in which the burden cannot be passed from one person to another person. The second example I have given over here is gift tax. In gift tax, for example, I am giving a gift of, say, a gift of property of rupees 50 lakhs to my younger brother. Now, in this particular case, what I'm doing is I'm gifting him the property. Now, state to state, there applies the gift tax law. So, if you are gifting something, fine, you need to pay tax on that particular gift amount. Again, in this particular case, the person who is paying the tax and the person who is bearing the burden of this tax are the same. So, again, the burden is not going to be shifted from one person to another person. As a result of which, this is also the example of direct tax. To cut this short, we are just going to remember two important points in this particular meaning. What is direct tax? The taxes whose burden cannot be shifted. Fine. So the person who is going to pay the tax to the government is going to bear the burden of the tax. Examples are income tax, gift tax. I hope I am clear with this particular meaning. Moving ahead to the second part. What is indirect tax? We can say, sir, जो direct tax का opposite है, वो क्या होगा? Indirect tax. From meaning viewpoint, it is something like that only. Let's see what is written over here. Taxes whose burden can be shifted. ऊपर क्या लिखा था? The burden that cannot be shifted. What is written over here? The burden can be shifted to the others. That is, the person who pays it to the government passes on the burden wholly or partly to the others. For example, GST, goods and service tax. Let's take an example. You are purchasing a jeans pant. Fine. What you are going to a garment shop and you are purchasing the jeans pant. Now just remember, how many persons could have been involved in this particular process to manufacture a jeans? For example, let's make it simple. First would be the manufacturer who have manufactured the jeans. Then what he have done is he has passed on the jeans. He has sold this jeans to the wholesaler. What wholesaler has done is he has sold this jeans to the retailer. And finally, we as the consumer, we are purchasing these jeans from the retailer. In short, at the first instance, government would ask for the tax that आपने manufacture किया है, you are selling the product, तो आपको tax pay करना पड़ेगा. The GST is going to be initially borne. Who is going to pay GST to the government? It would be the manufacturer. But then what manufacturer is going to do is he is going to add that particular portion of GST in his bill. As a result of which, wholesaler is going to pay for both. He is going to pay for the price of the jeans as well as he is going to pay the GST amount. So again, the burden that was being paid by the manufacturer has been shifted to the wholesaler. I hope you are getting the context. Again, the same process will happen. Wholesaler is going to deposit the amount with the government. Now, wholesaler is going to add the same amount in his own bill. As a result of which, retailer, when goes to wholesaler to purchase that particular jeans, he is going to pay jeans ka amount as well as the GST amount. In short, the burden of GST, which started from the manufacturer, was being transferred to the wholesaler. Wholesaler then passed on the burden to the retailer. And now we, as a final consumer, when we go to the shop and purchase that jeans, what we are doing? We are paying for the jeans, the basic price of jeans, inclusive of GST. As a result of which, we are also contributing towards the GST burden. In short, what I want to prove from this example is the person who has actually initially paid GST with the government is not the person who is actually borning or bearing the burden of this particular tax. ऊपर क्या था? In income tax, the person who was paying the tax to the government and who was bearing the burden of the tax were the same. But in this particular case, that is, in the case of GST, the person who is paying the tax to the government and the person who is bearing the burden are different, because the tax was initially being deposited by the manufacturer, but the actual burden is being borne by the final consumer. Fine. So this is the basic difference between direct tax and indirect tax. So if you properly understand the words that I have underlined over here, it will be much more easier for you to clear out the concept. Indirect tax, the burden cannot be shifted, but in case of indirect tax, the burden can be shifted. So the examples of indirect tax I have written over here is goods and service tax, custom duty. I have just written two examples over here, so it would be sufficient enough for writing in 2 marks questions. Friends, I hope that you are totally clear with the basic word that we are going to deal with throughout our entire life, like what is direct tax and what is indirect tax. Now moving ahead, this is just for your information. It is not so much important from the viewpoint of exam, but since you are studying this subject from the first time, I feel that you should know what we are going to study in this particular part. Income tax in India is governed by, fine, we all know there is an income tax in India. So what all are the provisions, what all are the acts, what all are the rules that are governing income tax in our country? So the first and the most important point, we can say this is whole and soul of income tax in our country. It is known as Income Tax Act 1961. So अगर मैं आपको नींद में से भी उठा के पूछूं कि when Income Tax Act was passed, answer should be in your mind already. That is Income Tax Act 1961. Second thing is Annual Finance Act. Annual Finance Act is basically nothing. All the budget provisions which are keep on updating from year to year basis. Finance Minister, you all know, basically publishes the entire budget, and on the basis of which the Annual Finance Act has been enacted from year to year basis. So basically what I can say is that basically all the establishments, all the new provisions that are being inserted in the budget are being passed on or are being implemented under the Annual Finance Act. So the first was Income Tax Act 1961. Second is Annual Finance Act. Third point is there are certain rules which basically gives understanding regarding the certain provisions of income tax. So we are also being governed by the income tax rules. See friends, what we are studying basically is income tax is there in India, but what all are the things that are covering, that are basically governing income tax in our country? So the first was Income Tax Act. Second is Annual Finance Act. Third is income tax rules. What is the fourth point? Legal judgments. Time to time, there are certain cases on the certain provisions of Income Tax Act, after a hearing of which the judges passes his judgment. That judgment also becomes applicable to the particular provisions on which the case was being passed in the court of law. So all these judgment are also the part of the income tax that which are following as of date. And the last point is circulars and clarifications which are being issued by the CBDT. Remember this name as a taxation student, you should know this body. Who is CBDT? Central Board of Direct Taxes. So time to time, various circulars and various clarifications are being issued by whom? By CBDT. So if there are certain complications in the provisions which are freshly inserted in the Income Tax Act, we need to have a clear clarification of what it actually wants to do, what it actually wants to say. So what the CBDT does is CBDT time to time issues the clarification on that particular provision so that it becomes easier for each and every citizen of the country to implement the same in its right meaning. I hope I am clear with this entire slide. I'm just giving you some time, and I would just like to request you all to quickly go through all the content that is being written on this particular slide. Well, friends, I hope you have gone through the entire slide and now you are well aware like what is direct tax, the burden whose cannot be shifted. What is indirect tax? The burden of whose can be shifted. And from where the Income Tax Act in India or where from where what all are the sources which are governing income tax in our country. Moving ahead to the next definition that is covered under section 2 subsection 24. Some of you might be seeing this thing written in such format for the very first time. So how we are going to read this particular thing? Section 2 subsection 24. I'm again repeating for your understanding. Section 2 subsection 24 of which act? Of what we have studied over here, Income Tax Act 1961. So the word income is actually defined under section 2 subsection 24 of Income Tax Act 1961. Now let's study what is the definition given in our Income Tax Act 1961. Income means some monetary returns. So the first important point that we need to understand and we need to learn is there should be a monetary returns. If I'm getting any return in a non-monetary form, it is not going to be included as my income. What I'm going to focus over here is it should be the return in monetary terms. I hope I'm clear with the first word. So income means some monetary returns periodically received. It should not be like that you have received for once and now you are not going to receive in your entire life. Fine. It is not basically your income. You should receive it periodically on a periodic basis from time to time. So the first word that we have learned is the return should be in monetary format. Second, you should receive that particular monetary return from periodically, that is from time to time, from some definite source. It means from where you are getting your income should be an identifiable definite source. It should not be like that कि आज मुझे Mr. A से कुछ पैसे मिले, after 3 to 4 years I am getting some amount from Mr. B. No, it is not going to be your income. For example, I took my example. I am the person who is getting salary from the college. So first of all, the salary is coming in monetary terms. Answer is yes. So it is a monetary return. Second, whether I'm getting my salary periodically, yes, I'm getting it on a month-to-month basis. So it is I'm getting in a periodical basis. Third, whether I'm getting it from a definite source, answer is yes. College is the one person who is definitely going to pay me the salary on month-to-month basis. In short, all the three criteria which are being laid down in this particular definition are being fulfilled in the particular example of mine of receiving salary. So salary can be considered as the income. I hope I am clear with the definition of income. I'll just like to repeat it once again for your better understanding. Income means some monetary returns. That is, it should be in money. Second point is it should be received periodically. It is not like that it is a one-time thing. You should receive it periodically from time to time. And last, you should receive it from some definite source. There should be a definite person, identifiable source from where you are getting that particular returns. If these three conditions are satisfied, I can say I am earning income. I hope I am clear. Fine. Moving ahead. Definition is inclusive and not exhaustive. Now, these two are the words that you may face in your life whenever we are going to learn subjects, like you are going to study taxation in this particular year, that is second year. You will be studying the subject called mercantile law in your third year, that is SYBCOM. These two words are never ever going to leave you behind. They are always going to disturb you. Fine. So better if they disturb us, we should learn them easily and interpret what they actually mean. I have written into bracket what these words mean. Inclusive means additional items can be added, while exhaustive means it's complete. Now let's understand with for the example. Here it is written, the definition of income is inclusive. What does it mean? Additional items can be added. For example, as of now, there are totally 27 items which are mentioned in Income Tax Act, which are a part of income. Fine. So the first thing that we need to understand is, as of now, there are totally 27 items which are included in the list of income. Now the definition of income is inclusive. So if the authority feels that there is certain item which can also be added into this definition, then they can add it without any hesitation. It means this definition is inclusive. Means if you find in future that certain things are supposed to be added or covered under the purview of income, you can easily add those particular things. If such is the kind, then it is known as inclusive definition. Now what is exhaustive definition? For example, let's assume that this definition is exhaustive. Now you are well aware there are totally 27 items as of now in the meaning of income. Now if you want to add something to this particular definition, you cannot add it. Fine. This is exhaustive. Means if it is written one time, it is done for one and for all. You can never edit the same thing. You cannot add something to this particular thing. So this is the basic difference between the words inclusive and exhaustive. Inclusive means you can add something as and when you feel like adding. Exhaustive means what is given to you is totally complete. You can never add something to that particular part. I hope I am clear with the definition of income, which is being stated under section 2, subsection 24. Again, giving you 30 seconds, quickly read the definition that I have written over here of income. Well, I guess you have gone through the definition. Four important words that we are going to remember in this definition. First is, of course, this section. It is always advisable to learn the sections, but students at the same time, please remember, don't write wrong section in your answer paper. If you know the section, write the correct section. If you don't know the section, please don't write the section. Just to give you a clue, this is just a trial and error part, but you can know all the definitions that we are going to study in this chapter are mentioned in section 2. So what you need to stress upon is only on learning the subsection. Like if you'll see all the definition, they are given in section 2. Now for income, the definition was given in section 2, subsection 24. First, there should be a monetary return. Second, you should receive it periodically. Third, you should receive it from a definite source. This definition is inclusive. That is, you can add on to this particular definition. It is not exhaustive. As of now, how many items are there in this? There are 27 items like profits, dividend, capital gain, etc. Let's move on to the next definition. The word read as SSE. Before starting with this definition, I would just like you to draw your attention on the spelling of this word, because many a times I found in the supplementaries that students are writing wrong spelling of the word assessee. So it is like ASS, ESS, double. Fine. So it is assessee, which is mentioned under section 2, subsection 7. Now let's understand what is the definition which is being provided under the act. So the entire definition is being given into the 5 different points. So if the person is satisfying any of the one criteria which is given over here, he can be called an assessee. Fine. Let's start with the first one. Person liable to pay any tax or any other sum of money under this act. This act means Income Tax Act 1961. So if there is any person who is liable to pay, जिसको कुछ भी pay करना है, it can be any tax or it can be any other sum like interest, penalty or any other thing under Income Tax Act. The important word over here is if he is liable to pay, उसको कुछ pay करना है, then he will be defined as an assessee. This is a simple part. Fine. Moving to the second point. Every person in respect of whom any proceeding under this act has been taken for assessment for self. Proceeding is basically, you can say in general terms as of now, आपके ऊपर कोई case चल रहा है. Fine. It is nothing. It is the proceeding. So if any case is going on, any proceeding is going on under Income Tax Act, and assessment is being done. Assessment, you can say for now you have not studied that particular part. I can say entire scrutiny हो रही है. Fine. So what is over here is there is a proceeding. Fine. Any case is going on under Income Tax Act which is taken up for assessment for self. Self is on you. Then you can be told as an assessee. So though you may not be liable to pay anything. Fine. आपको कुछ पे नहीं करना है, but आपके ऊपर कोई केस चल रहा है, assessment चल रहा है with regards to you, then also you can be termed as an assessee. Please friends, इसको एकदम simple sense में understand करने की try करना, then it will be easier for you to remember. First point that I have discussed is, if you are liable to pay something, it may be tax, it may be interest, it may be penalty, it can be anything, then you are assessee. Second is, though if you are not liable to pay, आपको कुछ भी pay नहीं करना है, But still, if any proceeding or any assessment is going on yourself, then also you are a part of assessing. Let's go to the third point. Every person in respect of whom any proceeding under this act has been taken for the assessment, for other person in respect of whom he is assessable. Now, first portion is same that we have studied in the second point, that proceeding चल रही है, case चल रहा है, इस act में और assessment हो रहा है. But in second point it was वो मेरी खुद की income के लिए मेरे साथ हो रहा था. In the third point it is written it is for some other person in respect of whom he is assessable. For example, I'll give an example. My father is a non-resident person, fine, but he is having some income which is being generated in India. He is a non-resident basically, so tax liability is not going to be there in India. But he is having one income which is in India. So what he has done is he has appointed me as a legal representative. Now who am I? I am representative. Is it my income? Answer is no. It is not my income. But since my father is an NRI, the income that he is earning I will be accessible for the same. So are you getting the difference between second point and third point? Second point में जो income थी वो मेरे खुद की थी, but third point में it is not my own income, it is the income of my father, but I am accessible to income as a representative. So this is a basic difference. Second point में भी case चल रहा था, third point में भी case चल रहा है. Proceeding is there, fine, but in second point the proceeding was regarding to the self income. In the third point it is with regard to some other person. I hope I am clear with this. Next is deemed to be an assessee. That is, I gave you the example of representative assessee. You are not accessible for your own income. For example, there is a minor, a person or a child who is below 18 years. So he is not accessible to the tax liability directly. So what the case would be? The major parent of his, that is, his parent will be liable for the tax liability. As a result of which, the parents are known as representative assessee. It is, he is not assessee. Minor is not directly liable to pay. It is not a liability of the parents also. But since the person is a minor, but he cannot be taxed, as a result of which the parents are going to be termed as the representative assessee. That is, you are taxed on behalf of someone else. That is known as deemed to be assessee. The last point is deemed to be assessee in default. Remember this word, assessee in default. That is, if you fail to pay tax, for example, I have to pay tax latest by 30 June 2020. But due to certain reason, I failed to pay tax. I failed to deposit the amount of tax with the income tax authority. Then I would be termed as assessee in default. For example, I would have to deduct the tax. If I am paying to some contractor, fine, I have to deduct TDS. You might have heard this word, tax deducted at source. What is it? We are going to deal it in the latter part of this syllables. But as of now, what you need to remember is if you were supposed to deduct the tax before 30 June, but you failed to deduct the tax, then you would be known as assessee in default. So if you as a person are covered under any of this point, out of 5 points, if you are covered under any of the point, you will be termed as or you will be defined as an assessee under section 2, subsection 7. First is if you are liable to pay anything, it may be tax, it may be interest, it may be penalty, it may be anything. Second, if any proceeding is going on, assessment is taken with regard to your own income, with regard to your own self. Third is proceeding is there, assessment is there, but it is not on you. It is for some another person, but for whom you are assessable. Fourth is deemed to be an assessee, that is representative assessee, in which I gave you the example of minor and his parent. And last is assessee in default. If you fail to pay or deduct any tax, you will be termed as assessee in default. Just giving you 1 minute, friends. Quickly go through the entire 5 points so that you can have a pure clarity about who is an assessee. Well, friends, I hope you have gone through the definition. Just one note, friends. Please learn the underlined words that I have given on this particular slide. If you will be properly understanding and learning all the words that I have highlighted in the definition, it will be much more easier for you to learn the definition and easily write in your examination. So till now, what we have discussed, we have discussed what is direct tax, what is indirect tax, what all are the different things that are governing income tax in our country. Next, we have studied the definition of income. We have studied the definition of assessment. Now let's move to the last part of today's topic, the last topic. Fine. For general understanding is basically the heading that I have written. I have laid stress in my first introductory session, that is the discussion of syllables. There were two important words, previous year and assessment year. So as of now, I am not going into technicality. Fine. As a result of which I have written over here, for general understanding. Let's understand as a common person. Then in the next slide, we will study what is a basically technical definition. But as of now, let's be a common person. I am having no idea regarding what taxation is all about. I am a common layman. For me, what is a previous year? I know accounting, fine. So the current financial year. For example, if you are preparing account for the year 2019-20, what would be the financial year? 2019-20, fine. So the current financial year is known as previous year in income tax. I hope you are clear with this. The current financial year is known as previous year. What is assessment year? The year following the current financial year. If I was preparing the books of account of 2019-20, my previous year is 2019-20. The year following the current financial year, that is 2020-21, will be my assessment year. I hope you are generally clear about what is previous year and what is assessment year. Previous year means current financial year. Assessment year means year following, that is coming next to the current financial year. I have given you the example. If we are computing income of Mr. X for the financial year 2019-20, what is my financial year? 2019-20. Then my previous year is going to be 2019-20 and my assessment year is going to be 2020-21. I hope you are totally clear. Friends, please clarify this particular point, because when we are going to start with the practical sums, these two words are going to be the part and partial of each and every question we are going to solve. So it is compulsory for all of you to have a clear idea like what is previous year and what is assessment year. So I can just say on a lighter note, naam pe mat jana. Previous year is not the last year. Fine. In income tax, previous year is current financial year and assessment year is the following year. Fine. So now let's refer to the next slide for the technical definition. The first definition I have written over here in the order in which it is given in income tax. Assessment year, a year in which the income of previous year is taxed. Again, I am repeating the definition. A year in which income of previous year is taxed. For example, in this slide, we took an example. We were computing income of Mr. X for financial year 2019. What was my previous year? 2019-20. Now, I was calculating my income till 31st March 2020. But what does income tax act tell me? I need to pay the return. I need to pay the tax of this particular year in the next year. Fine. What is the next year? We know it is an assessment year. So now let's go back to the definition. The year in which the income of previous year is taxed. So my previous year was 2019-20, and in which year the income is going to be taxed? In the next year, that is 2020-21. So what is my assessment year? 2020-21. In short, कुछ भी समझ में नहीं आया तो it is as simple as that. The current financial year for which I am calculating my income is my previous year, and the year following the current financial year, that is my following the previous year, is known as my assessment year. It is a period of 12 months. Fine. It is always going to start from 1st April and it is always going to end on 31st March. So in income tax, it is fixed. The year is going to start from 1st April and it is going to end on 31st March. So this is all about assessment year. Now let's check what is previous year. The first point I have written over here is the financial year immediately preceding the assessment year. Now, in our example, what was the assessment year? 2020-21. Why we have said that it is my assessment year? Because in this particular year, my income of previous year was taxed. So, income was of 2019-20, but it was taxed in the year 2021. So, 2021 became my assessment year. So, now as per this definition, what is the previous year? The financial year immediately preceding the assessment year. My assessment year is 2021. So which is the year preceding, that is coming before that, it is 2019-20. So what is going to be my previous year? 2019-20. So देखो answer तो आपका same ही आ रहा है from general understanding and from actual technical understanding. But if it is an asked in exam, you need to write the definition which is given over here. So as a result of which, you can refer this slide to clear out the concept in your mind, and then you can refer this slide to learn how to write in examination. As a result of which, I have purposefully kept this particular slide for your general understanding. Now let's move to the second point. For a newly set up business, let's take an example. I have found some good opportunity that post Corona, post lockdown, I can start a new fresh business. So I have decided I'm going to start a new business from 1st July 2020. Now for me, what is going to be my previous year? So for that, there is a second point which is written for a newly set up business. Previous year is equal to date of commencement of business to next 31st March. So in our example, I am going to start my business from 1st July 2020. So my previous year is going to start from 1st July 2020 to next 31st March. That is 31st March 2021. I hope you are clear. The previous year started from 1st July 2020, but it ended on 31st March 2020-21. Now the question arises, sir, ये तो सिर्फ 9 months से हो रहा है. Friends, if a business is newly set up, it is not compulsory that your previous year should be of 12 months. It can be of the period which is less than 12 months. You need to start calculating from the date of commencement to the next 31st March. I hope I am clear with this particular point. Moving ahead to the next point. When the source of income is not traceable or known, I am not knowing. मुझे income तो मिली, but कहाँ से मिली मुझे पता ही नहीं चल रहा. It is not traceable or it is not known. Then previous year for that particular income is the year in which it is detected by the authorities. I'll just give you the small example of it. I am receiving salary from the college. Fine. It is a definite source of income. We all know that it is coming from the college. So it is taxable. So it is easy to determine the year for which I am earning the income. That is my previous year. And the year in which it is going to be taxed. That is the next year. That is my assessment year. But in the same year, I am receiving 1 lakh rupees as credit in my bank account. Now no one is aware ये 1 lakh rupees आया कहाँ से. So for that 1 lakh rupees, the year in which the income tax authority detect कि अच्छा ये 1 lakh rupees तो यहाँ से आया था. Now let's take an example. They are detecting this particular thing in the year 2024-25, and for this 1 lakh rupees, the previous year is going to be 2024-25. So my salary the previous year is going to be as per the norms, that is 2019-20. But for the amount of 1 lakh rupees, जिसका source पता ही नहीं चल रहा था, for that the previous year is going to be the year in which the authority detect when it was received, that is 2024-25. I hope I am clear with all the 3 points I have stated over here. Friends, these are just the one-liner points, but if you start implementing this in your real life situation, the explanation can also extend to more than 1 page. As a result of which, I have told you initially, the subject of taxation is very interesting. You are referring to only one line, but you don't know how many places you are going to implement the same point. So, moving to the last part of my today's lecture, which I have written over here. What is the general rule? General rule of income tax says income of previous year is assessed in assessment year. I'm again repeating, this is the general rule, that is a rule of thumb that you need to learn. Income of previous year, for example, I am earning salary for 2019-20, is assessed in assessment year. उसके ऊपर टैक्स कब पे करना पड़ेगा? In the next year, that is 2021. This is the general rule. It applies everywhere. Income of your previous year is going to be assessed, that is it is going to be liable for taxation in the next year, that is your assessment year. But there are 5 points which are exceptions to the general rule. Exception का मतलब ये जो rule है वो ये 5 points पे apply नहीं होने वाला है. As a result of which, when I'm talking, income of previous year is not going to be assessed in assessment year. It is going to be assessed in the previous year itself. So let me clarify out, let me generalize this thing. If my situation is falling in any of the point out of this 5, then the income is going to be taxed in the same year in which I am earning the same. So for example, if I am earning the income in 2019-20, it is going to be taxed in 2019-20 itself. It is not going to be taxed in the next assessment year. I hope I am clear with the exceptions. Now let's take a quick look like what are the points written over here. First point is shipping business of non-resident. Suppose you are a non-resident, but if you are earning any profit out of your business of shipping, fine, then the profit is going to be taxed in the previous year itself in which you are earning the income. Second point is person living India permanently or for a longer period of time. For example, I am doing job as of now in India, but for example, I got the job in USA and I am going there permanently to do the job. So the income that I have earned in current year is going to be taxed in the current year itself. Income tax authority is not going to wait कि भैया आराम से next year tax pay करना. So if I'm going out of India, I'm living India permanently or for a longer period of time, the income is going to be taxed in the previous year itself. Third point is AOP, that is Association of Person, and BOI, Body of Individual. What is it basically? I'm going to explain you in my next lecture. If it is formed for this specific purpose, for example, I want to construct a bridge. Fine. I want to construct a bridge at some particular place. So there was an association of person or a body of individual which was formed for this specific purpose. So the year in which this purpose is completed, you need to pay tax on the particular profit or income you have earned out of this particular construction of bridge. You are not going to wait for the next, that is your assessment year. So again, in this particular case, if AOP, that is Association of Person, or BOI, that is Body of Individual, is formed for any specific purpose, like I took an example of construction of bridge. जैसे ही bridge बन जाता है, your income is going to be taxable in that particular year itself. Fourth point is persons likely to transfer property to avoid tax. There are certain persons who do transfer of property. For example, I am earning salary, so I am having one source of income which is taxable. So what I will do is, if I am having any property which is earning income, if I'll show in my own name, then I am going to pay two kind of taxes, one on my salary income and second on the income I am receiving from the property. So what I will do is, my mother is not having any kind of income. So I will transfer the property in the name of my mother. As a result of which, I will be taxable only for one income, that is salary. And my mother will also be taxable for one income, that is property. This is nothing. What I have done is, I have just transferred the property to avoid higher rates of taxation that I would have to pay. So to avoid that thing, what I have done is, I have transferred the property. If this act is done, which is actually not good, fine, we should not do this. But if it is done to avoid the tax, then you are supposed to pay tax in the same year in which you are transferring the property. And the last point is discontinued business. You are doing a business like from 10 years, but now after COVID, I felt situation is not like doing the business or continuing the business. So I've decided that I am not going to continue with my business and I'm shutting down with my business. If I am discontinuing my business, I need to pay tax on the profit that I have earned in the previous year in that particular year itself. I hope you are clear with all the 5 points I have written over here. Fine. So this is the entire content that we have covered today. See, as I told you, I am not going to give you so much content in one particular lecture because I can understand being a new subject, it won't be possible for you to catch up so quickly. So what we are actually planning that we are going to do only few topics a day. As a result of which you can actually, I'm giving you practical example just because you can relate it to your day-to-day life and you can see how these concepts are useful in each and everything that you think about. As a result of which, students, I urge you all that please prepare all the topics that I am covering in a day so that when we start with the next chapter, we don't again need to start from ABC. It is what we have studied in the previous lectures. I can assume that you are having a sufficient knowledge of what I have taught you in the previous lectures, and we can directly start the train from where we have stopped. So I hope, friends, today's lecture was much more useful and fruitful to you. We are going to continue to study like this way only in our all the upcoming sessions. So I request you all to kindly join the upcoming sessions, and I thank you all for your patient listening. Have a wonderful day and happy learning. Bye friends.